Hello, this is Slate with Combo of Rocks, bringing you another video deck tech of a deck that we built by request. If you're not familiar with us, we make and sell custom budget EDH decks. These decks are light on the budget, so they may not be optimal or competitive, but they're definitely fun and centered around a central theme that you can build on. So today we have Narci, a Fable Singer, which is 1 and a white, black, green for a 3/3 legendary human bard with lifelink. Whenever you sack an enchantment, draw a card. Whenever the final chapter of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that saga's mana value. So this deck is based on sagas, but also sacking enchantments. Let's get into the deck. We have Satsuki, the Living Lore, green, white for a 1/3 legendary human druid. Tap it to put a lore counter on each saga you control as a sorcery. When it dies, choose one, return a saga or enchantment creature you control to its owner's hand, or return a saga card from your graveyard to your hand. Spirit Sister's Call, 3 black, white for an enchantment. On your end step, choose a permanent in your graveyard. You can sack a permanent that shares a card type with that chosen card. If you do, return the chosen card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and if this permanent would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Doom Foretold, 2 white, black enchantments. On the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacks a non-land, non-token permanent. If that player can't, they discard a card, lose 2 life, you draw a card and gain 2 life, and you create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. Then you sack Doom Foretold. Merciless Eviction, 4 black, white, choose one, exile all artifacts, all creatures, all enchantments, or all planeswalkers. Legion Stashes, 1 white, black, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls, and all tokens that player controls with the same name as that permanent. Maelstrom Pulse, very similar, 1 green, black, destroy non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name. Knight of the Doctor, 4 white, white, saga. First chapter, destroy all creatures. Second chapter, return target legendary card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put your choice of a first strike, vigilance, or lifelink counter on it. Battle at Hellvault, 4 white, white, saga. First 2 chapters, for each player, exile it to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls until this leaves the battlefield. Third chapter, create Alvison, a legendary 8/8 white angel creature token with flying, vigilance, and indestructible. Vault 75, Middle School, 2 white, white. First chapter, exile all creatures with power 4 or greater. Next 2 chapters, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Barbara Wright, 1 and a white for 1/3 legendary human advisor. Sagas you control have read ahead, so you can skip to any chapter you want to, even the final chapter, allowing it to trigger Narci's final ability. It is a Doctor's companion, but there is no Doctor in the deck. Ian Chesterton, also a Doctor's companion. 2 and a white for 2/3 legendary human scientist. Each saga spell you control has replicate. The replicate cost is equal to its mana cost. So when you cast the saga, copy it for each time you paid the replicate cost. Copies are permanent to enter as tokens. 3 blind mice, 2 and a white, 4 chapters here. First chapter creates a 1/1 mouse. 2 chapters create a token, a copy of target token you control. 4th chapter, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. Elspeth conquers death, 3 white, white, 3 chapters. Exile a permanent opponent controls with mana value 3 or less. Non-creature spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast. Return target creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a 1/1 counter on it or a loyalty counter on it. Ondu Spirit Dancer, 4 and a white for a 3/3 core cleric. Whenever an enchantment you control enters, you can create a token that's a copy of it. Do it only once each turn. Pursuit of Knowledge, 3 and a white, skip drawing a card, put a study counter on it. Remove 3 study counters, sack it, draw 7 cards. Promise of Loyalty, 4 and a white, each player puts a vow counter on a creature they control, sacks the rest. Each of these creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers for as long as they have a vow counter on it. Phyrexian Scriptures, 2 black, black, 3 chapters, put a 1/1 counter on a creature. That creature becomes an artifact. Second chapter, destroy all non-artifact creatures. Third chapter, exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. The World Spell, 5 green, green. First 2 chapters, look at the top 7 cards of your library. Reveal a non-saga permanent card from among them. Put it in your hand. The rest on your bottom of your library in a random order. Third chapter, put up to 2 non-saga permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. On the Trail, 1 and a green. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Into some mana rocks, Talisman of Unity, Talisman of Hierarchy, Talisman of Resilience, Selesnya Signet, Orzhov Signet, Golgari Signet, Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, Navigation Orb. This one fetches some gates or basics, just a good way to fix your mana. There are some gates in the deck. Jukai Naturalist, green-white for a 2/2 enchantment creature, human monk with lifelink. Enchantments cost 1 less to cast. Gloom Shrieker, 1 black-green for 2 enchantment creature, cat beast with menace. When it enters, return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If it would die, exile it instead. Binding the Old Gods, 2 black, green for another saga. Destroy non-land permanent opponent controls. Second chapter, searches for a forest, puts it on the battlefield tapped. Third chapter, gives your creatures death touch until end of turn. Final payments, black, white, instant, additional cost to cast. Sack a creature, pay 5 life, or sack an enchantment. Destroy target creature. Soul Snare, 1 white enchantment, you can pay a white and sack it to exile a creature that's attacking you or a planeswalker you control. Tale of Tuniviel, 3 white, white, saga, target creature gains indestructible for as long as you control this. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. The third chapter, up to 2 target creatures gain a lifelink until end of turn. Michiko's Reign of Truth, 1 and a white, first 2 chapters, target creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment you control. Third chapter, exile it and returns it to the battlefield as Portrait of Michiko. 0/0 gets +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment you control. Era of Enlightenment, 1 white, first chapter scry 2, second one gain 2 life, third chapter exile it, becomes a 2/2 enchantment creature human monk with first strike. Befriending the Maws, 3 and a white, first 2 chapters gives a creature +1/+1 and flying until end of turn, then you transform it, becomes a 2/4 enchantment creature insect with flying. Love Song of Night and Day, 2 and a white, this one does have read ahead. So first chapter, you and target opponent each draw 2 cards, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. Third chapter, put a 1/1 counter on each up to 2 target creatures. Follow the First Civilization. First chapter, you and target opponent each draw 2 cards. Exile an artifact or an artifact that opponent controls. Third chapter, each player chooses 3 non-land permanents, then destroys all other non-land permanents. Ajani Fells the Godsire, 3 white, 3 chapters. Exile a creature an opponent controls with power 3 or greater. Second chapter, create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token with a vigilance counter on it. Or put a vigilance counter on each on a creature you control. Third chapter, target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. Fall of Lord Konda, 2 and white, 3 chapters. Exile a creature an opponent controls with mana value 4 or greater. Each player gains control of all permanents they own. Third chapter flips it into Fragment of Konda, 1/3 enchantment creature human noble defender. When it dies, draw a card. Seal of Cleansing, 1 and a white enchantment. You can sack it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Knight of Doves, 2 and white for a 1/3 human knight. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. Dawn to Dusk, 2 white, choose one or both. Return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand, or destroy target enchantment so you can do both. Auramancer, 2 and white for a 2/2 human wizard. When it enters, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. Chainer's Torment, 3 and a black. First 2 chapters, deal 2 damage to each opponent. You gain 2 life. Third chapter, create an XX black horror, where X is half your life total rounded up. It deals X damage to you. Midnight Snack, 2 and a black with raid. On your end step, if you attack with the creature, create a food token. 2 and a black, sack the enchantment. Target opponent loses X life, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Very good with Narci's ability. Braid's Frightful Return, 2 and a black. This one does have read ahead. You can sack a creature. If you do, each opponent discards a card. Return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Target opponent may sacrifice a non-land, non-token permanent. If they don't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. We have Wicked Visitor, 1 and a black for 2/2 Nightmare. Whenever an enchantment is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Final Vengeance, 1 black, additional cost to cast, sack a creature or an enchantment, exile target creature. Font of Fertility, 1 green enchantment, 1 green, sack it to search for basic land, put on the battlefield tapped. Utopia Sprawl, 1 green aura enchantment, enchant a forest, choose a color, then the forest taps for an additional mana of that color. Fertile Ground, very similar, it makes your land tap for an additional mana of any color, but doesn't have to enchant a forest. Colony Heart Expedition, 1 and a green landfall, whenever a land enters, put a quest counter, remove 3 quest counters, sack it, search for 2 basic lands, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Rampant Growth, 1 and a green, search for a library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Secure Tribuilder, same thing, but on a creature that sacks itself to do it. Ranger's Path, 3 and a green, searches for 2 forest cards, puts them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Vessel of Nascency, 1 green enchantment, 1 green, sack it, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker from among them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. Seal of Primordium, 1 and a green, much like the white counterpart, an enchantment you can sack to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Zuzu's Many Journeys, 1 and a green, 3 chapters, play an additional land, gain 3 life, and then flip it. It does become a 3/3 Likeness of the Seeker. Human Monk, when it becomes blocked, untap up to 3 lands you control. And the Weatherseed Treaty, 2 and a green, this one has read ahead, search for basic, put on the battlefield tapped, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token, or the 3rd chapter with Domain. Target creature gets +X/+X, gains trample, where X is the number of basic lands among land types you control. Dryad's Revival, or 2 and a green sorcerer, return a card from your graveyard to your hand with flashback for 4 and a green. Story Weave, 2 and a green, choose 1, put 2 1/1 counters on a creature you control, or put 2 lore counters on a saga you control. The next time 1 or more enchantment creatures enter under your control this turn, it enters with additional 2 1/1 counters on it. Strength of the Harvest, 2 green white hybrid, aura, enchantment, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each creature or an enchantment you control. It can also be a tapped green white land. And then Glasswing Grace, 3 black white hybrid, enchantment aura, enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has flying and lifelink. Can also be a tapped black white land. Into some lands, we have Sungrass Prairie, Canopy Vista, Fortified Village, Shine Shadow Snarl, Viridiscent Bog, Necroblossom Snarl, Murmuring Bosk. This can be searched because it is a forest. It does tap for 3 lands, but will enter tapped in this deck. Exotic Orchard, Command Tower, Sandstep Citadel, Manor Gate, Black Dragon Gate, Citadel Gate, Deceptive Landscape. This one can be cycled or sacked to search for a land. Frozen Verge. This one can sack to search for a forest and a plains. Handy. Snowfield Sinkhole. This is a tapped plains swamp. Haunted Mire. This one is a tapped swamp forest. Can be searched for. And then we have some basic plains, swamps, and forests. That's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it, but we'll see you next time.